But cool. Thank you all for joining today. We're going to talk about workflows in Concord. This is something that came up on a call over the past couple weeks. We actually have a lot of cool workflow features in the system, and I feel like they're pretty underutilized, especially our system-wide workflows. And so that's why I decided that we should cover that this week in the system. Does anyone else have an echo? I hear that from time to time. Um, Alice, Jason, can you check in and tell me if I sound okay? Just let me know real quick. Okay. Yeah, it might be something on your side. Sorry if I'm echoing, but I think I sound okay to everyone else. Sorry about that. All right, well, let's go ahead and get started here. Quick way of background for those of you that don't know me, I'm Zach Kinsey. I'm the head of sales here at Concord. I've been with Concord for over 10 years now. I run our go-to-market team, sales team, and I wear lots of hats at Concord. So if I haven't talked to you, it's nice to meet you. If I have talked to you, it's good to see you again. And thanks for joining. And we do these webinars weekly. We typically do 2 per week, which we'll return to that schedule probably next week. But yeah, thanks for logging in. If you ever need to get a hold of myself, it's zach.hinsey@concord.app. You can also reach us at support@concord.app if you have general system questions or anything else we can help with. So feel free to reach out. Let's go ahead and jump in. So I am going to be demoing this through the Horizon platform because that's where a lot of our customers have moved to by this point, and that's the system that I spend all day in as I'm giving demos of the platform. So this is Concord Horizon. If it looks a little bit different from the system you're in, it's because you're in our classic version of Concord, which is totally fine. What I'm about to show you is actually the same in both systems, the actual workflows themselves. And so in Horizon, we find the workflows here under settings. Um, I don't think I have two things open causing an echo. So the question is, will everyone be moving to Horizon? Eventually, that's the plan, but I don't have any kind of timeline of when that's going to be. So no timeline for me there. Sometime potentially this year, but like I said, I don't know exactly yet. So to get to the workflow section, I'm gonna talk about what the different workflows are, why they're important to you, and how you can utilize them. So in Concord, we have, I would say, really three main types of workflows. We have the signature flow, which is basically like creating a document, adding signatures to it, sending it out for signature. A lot of people would call that a workflow, and we can talk about that in just a little bit. We also have the built-in approval workflows. This is where you can have some predetermined approval flows in the system, where whenever you kick off a new document from a template, it can automatically have an approval workflow built into it, and then you can go through that process, which we'll talk about as well. And then the last one, which I'm going to start with, is probably the one that gets overlooked by most people, and that is what we call our system-wide workflow. So this is a workflow that can actually help automate different things in the tool. A use case that I had a couple weeks ago, and sorry, I'm going to stop sharing my video real quick so we can focus on this. But a use case I had a couple weeks ago was somebody said, "Hey, every time I want to be able to like have someone upload a document into the system, and then based on the document type, I want that to get moved into a specific folder automatically because their end users were forgetting to move documents into folders." And they said, is there a way to do this in Concord? And the good news is there is a way to do that in Concord, and that's through a workflow. So let's talk through some of these different workflow options here. We have things like this finance department workflow. This is going to route finance documents to appropriate folder and team. Now, what I'm showing you right now is just an example. These are all examples. These will not show up in your system. I'm just showing you what you could build with the workflow in the tool. So the idea behind this workflow is you're going to be able to come in here and say, hey, when this thing happens, so in this case, when the agreement category is finance, or sorry, when the department, in this case, it's not agreement category, it's department is finance, which is one of the fields that's in the system, then we're going to automatically move it to the finance folder or accounting, let's say. And we're also going to invite this specific user directly to the document as an editor. Okay, so let's just go ahead and set up one up from scratch here. So we're going to create a new workflow, and we're going to say this is for sales orders. So anytime someone uploads a sales order form in the system, we're going to go ahead and create a workflow for this. So I've got my title here. I'm going to choose my property. So we're going to say document type is going to be, let's find it real quick here. We'll do a proposal. So document type equals proposal. And you could do an or, and all these different things. So you could have like multiple layers here. But anytime that is what's happening, then we're going to automatically move that to a folder. And the folder is going to be, I can't remember if I have a sales folder in here or not. Yes, I'm going to move it to the sales folder. So now what'll happen is whether they automatically move that document to the sales folder on their own, or the system just picks up the document type, and then it will just move it on its own. So you've got a couple different ways to make that happen. So that's here. And so I'm going to move it to that sales folder. I'm also going to add another action. I'm also going to automatically invite somebody on that document. So I'm going to come in here and say, hey, I want to invite John, and I'm going to make him a full editor on the document. And then I'm also going to do one other thing, which I'm going to extract a specific property to the document. So I'm going to come in here and do, these are my custom extracted properties that you can do in the new system. I'm going to always extract out the total contract value. And actually, I'm going to do one other thing, which I'll extract out the governing law location, let's say. So I now have a workflow. Anytime a document comes into the system that is a proposal, we're going to automatically put it in this folder. We're going to invite John, and we're going to extract out a few of these properties. Okay. And so now I just click Save Workflow, and that workflow is running in the system. It's quite useful, especially if you have a lot of end users that are using the platform on a daily basis, and you want to be able to get more control over where documents are going. For those of you that were here for one of our recent conversations, we talked about personal folders. As you can see, mine is empty. I'm good. I'm empty. That personal folder, if you want to go check it, it should be empty pretty much, because if the document is in a personal folder, that means that that document is not in one of the other folders in the system. And so we recommend always moving everything out of your personal folder just to make sure that it's categorized in the right place. And so one way that you can avoid people uploading documents and having stuff be in their personal folder is by creating one of those workflows that I just showed you. So that would be the real world use case for that. Another question I get a lot is, hey, I have people uploading documents into the system, so let's go create one other workflow for this real quick. So I'm going to go back into settings here. We're going to go to workflow, and we'll go create workflow. Another one is I need legal to review every single contract that comes in, especially if it's going to be like a sales team contract, an NDA, that type of stuff. So like we need to, we're going to call this legal review. And yes, you can add an approval workflow to it, or people can manually add people to a document, but sometimes they forget to do those things. I was literally just on a call with the customer who's like, our team is sending stuff out, they're forgetting to get it reviewed, they're getting it signed, and then it's a problem because then legal has to come in and be like, hey, you shouldn't have signed this because of X, Y, or Z. And so we're going to call this legal review. I'm going to come, and I could give it a description if I want. I'm going to come down here to this. So in this case, I'm actually going to say anytime a document equals, let's call it, let's do a few different things here. We're going to do an NDA. I'm also going to do, a couple other things here. Sure, partnership and joint venture. I'll just throw a few of them in here for now, and I'll show you one other cool thing you can do. Supplier agreement, great. Anytime it's one of these types of documents, and the document status, we're going to go status here. The status of the document equals, we'll say negotiation. I'll do one more, status here equals a contract that's in review. So we don't want templates, we do want signing, because that could mean that it's still not signed yet. So basically, I'll just leave it like that. So anytime I've got any of these document types and the contract is not signed yet, so it's in negotiation or signature pending, then we're going to automatically invite to review the document a couple of our legal team members here. So I'm going to invite in James, I can scroll down there. So I'm going to invite in a few of my team members here, and I'm going to make them all editors, of course. And that's pretty much it. The other action I could do is I can have this like extract certain properties, I can move it, do different things there. But basically that will happen. I'll click save. And so we now have that set up in the system. Questions here? So Oh, that's correct. Yeah, I messed that up. I was going too fast here. Thank you for that, Sean. These should be or, not and. You're absolutely right. Because if you do and, then it has to meet all these requirements in order for it to work. So thank you for that. So I would need to add them down here as ors instead of ands. Sorry. That's me going too quick here. So you would start over, agreement category equals, same thing that we talked about before. So you would just add these in, but instead of clicking and, we'll just click on that or and then we'll do the same thing. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. Good catch. Cool. So that's kind of the way that you would set that up in the system, and you can play around with it. The and would be basically it's like if it's this document type and it's in the stage, you could do them one by one. But the easier thing to do would be like if it's this or this or this, and they're in these stages, then that's when you would set up that workflow. So. It gets a little bit confusing. As you can see, I just messed it up myself, but I think you'll understand how that works. So, yeah. Cool. Let me know if you have any questions there. I would definitely recommend using these though and kind of setting them up for your use cases. Whether you want to add people to them for review, you want to add certain fields to be extracted or other fields just to be added to them, or if you want to put them into folders, those are all types of things you can do with the workflow. Let's talk about let me know if you have questions. I'll continue to monitor that, make sure there's no questions there. Let's talk about the document setup here. So we talk a lot about the approvals and the signatures as part of those other kind of workflows in the system. And another workflow, honestly, would be the intake process. So being able to have an intake form and then kind of kick that off into the whole thing. So let me start with an intake form, and I'll layer in a couple other things here. So in Concord, one of the more popular features we have right now is this intake process. I have a lot of customers that use this. We're going to make a lot of improvements to this actually in the very near future, so stay tuned. Lots of good stuff coming out here. But the idea behind intake forms is to be able to have your standard form in the tool. Uh, so basically, you can do like a budget approval, general contract, questions intake, MSA, whatever. So let's say that you want to build out this form for a program request form. So they'll basically come in, you'll put a title in, you can assign it to someone, and then you also can link this to a template that already lives inside of Concord. So this one is tied to a template that has these few different smart fields in it, and then those can become the questions that get asked during that process. So I'm just going to quickly run you through intake to approval workflow to signature, what that all looks like. So from here, I got my intake request. I'm going to come into new intake request because I need a contract to get reviewed, or I need to create a new contract. So I'll come down here and create this one. I'll put a due date in real quick. I'll give it a title. MSA for Adobe. I can put a description in here. I can attach a file. So if I have something that needs to be reviewed, I'll attach it. I'll fill in my few fields. Uh, and then I'll go ahead and just submit that into the system. So that's going to submit that into the platform. The person that is on the other end of that request, and we haven't really talked about all the emails and notifications in the workflow. That's an important piece. So this email just went out to the person that's in charge of that request. It says new intake request, MSA for Adobe. I just submitted that request and I just click open here. So that'll take them directly into this view. Now, if they came in and had some questions, I need more info, whatever, I can go ahead and put those here inside that question section. And then once I'm good with it, I just click on accept. I'm going to click create document. I'm going to attach this record to the contract itself, and then I'll upload it. So we've just gone from intake submitted to intake approved to now document created. So that's the workflow so far. Now on this template, you could have an approval workflow already built into it. So basically the idea is you would have this approval workflow where these different people need to see and approve the document before it can be finalized or signed. And you can set up those approval routings however you'd like. These are all the predetermined ones that I've created on the company approvals. So you can have like single step, multi-step, teams, or individuals. You could even have a conditional workflow that says, hey, based on what's entered into a specific one of these fields in the template, then we can choose who that actually needs to get routed to. So you have a number of different options here. But basically, you've got that approval workflow, and then the other flow you have is the signature itself. So choosing, how many signers you want, who the signers are going to be. I just like to keep it open to external and internal because I'm not sure who the signers are going to be on that document quite yet. And then I also am using that preset block, which goes at the bottom of the document here. You can auto request signatures and you can do signing order. Right now I have the external guest signing first, and then once they sign it, it's going to move on to that second guest. So basically, now that we've got our document, it's been filled out, it's ready to go. I can click share. We can share this out to all the different people that need to be added to the document. We would then go through, of course, that internal approval process. I'm going to go ahead and request this approval with a message. So, I need this for this new deal or whatever. So you can put in a message here and I'll request that approval. That email is going to get sent out to the approvers, letting you know that someone has requested that, just like this. And you'll see there's a lot of emails going out. So we have like intake request status once it gets updated because the document's been created, that's going to go out. When someone invites you to review, and then when your approval has been requested, there's an email for that as well. So a number of different things are going out from the system to update everyone on the steps here. So once I come in and approve that one, we can move that now into that signature process, which I'll have to remove the rest of this, but normally you'd go through your approval process. It's already been shared out, and so now we're ready to move it into signature. And I can either just keep the signature external and internal. I could also change who signs here. So if I want to put a specific person's email address there, of course I can. And then once we're all good to go, we just click sign and we can sign and execute. So that's the process of contract intake to doc creation, to approval workflow, to signature. All of that can happen in one place. And then if you remember, if we have one of those system-wide workflows, we can also be using those to add different people in, to add certain data fields in, to move the document to certain places based on the different criteria that are met. And so those are how some of the different workflows can work in the system. A question here from basically says, and when you assign team members to the system-wide workflows, would you need the seat space or can you add ad hoc? The answer is you do need to have the person you're adding into that workflow. They do need to be a user in the system, but they could actually just be a viewer seat if they are one of the free like viewer seats in the system. You could add them as a viewer, but then they would just only have viewer edit rights in the tool. So yeah, good question. Did I miss any questions? I think I covered everything. Okay, looks good. Let me know if anything else comes up. Hopefully you've learned something about those system-wide workflows, and don't do what I did the first time, mess them up. Just think about the or and the and you'll get it fine. But I would just challenge everyone, go in there, create your first workflow. You could just do something simple like auto, move documents to folders, I think is a good place to start, just to kind of get the feel for them and then, go from there. But if you have questions about how to set them up, or if you don't have access to the workflows, which most of our customers do at this point, but there may be a few really old accounts that don't have access to them. If you are wondering about how to get access, just reach out to myself and I'm more than happy to help with that. Yeah, let me know if there's other questions. Otherwise, we might end a little early today. That's okay. We don't have to take the full 30 minutes here. So yeah. Let me know if anything else comes up. Otherwise, you have some time to go and build your first workflow in Concord, so feel free to do that.